Hello everyone, I'm BK from Motorgraph World channel. Today we're gonna have head-to-head comparison test in the mid-size SUV segment. On my right, Ford Explorer, the 6th generation. Ford has been the benchmark in this segment for a long time. And on my left side, it's the 1st generation of Hyundai Palisade. Hyundai just has entered the American market against this strong competitor. So, who's gonna win this battle? Let's find out. This Explorer, some might think that it looks like a smiling face. This is just a strange look. But if you take a look at this car is even more strange. They put this DRL on the vertical type and they put these headlamps. I think it's a quite a creative attempt. Both have a big, ugly grills. They are quite big cars, but to be specific, the Ford has wider width. It's more than 2 meters wide, on the while this Palisade is 1975 millimeters wide. It's very interesting to see Explorer's side profile against the Palisade because this 6th generation, as you know, it has different powertrain layout, rear-wheel drive powertrain. So it means it has longer space between the wheel off to the front door because the engine is located longitudinally toward the backward. This one has much larger wheel arch compared to the Palisade, so it gives you more tough masculine images. This Explorer, slightly longer than Palisade, but in terms of the wheelbase, it's much longer than the Palisade. So it will probably give you more space in this cabin space. Both cars have the 20-inch rims, and interesting point is that both cars have the Michelin Primus all-season tire. Only difference is the width of the tire. This Explorer comes with the 255 millimeters wide, while the Palisade comes with the 245 millimeters wide. So let's move on to the Palisade. As mentioned earlier, this car is basically FF platform. This one is all-wheel drive version, but still the engine is located latitudinally, so there is much shorter distance between the wheel hub to the front door, and engine is hanging quite ahead of the front suspension strut mount. Other than that, the overall shape is quite pretty much similar to Explorer, and especially this part is it's almost exactly the same because when you see this area, it looks like a Ford actually. Okay, let's take a look at the rear end. Since this Explorer has a 2.3 petrol turbo engine, it has dual muffler. This Palisade, this is the Korean version, it has 2.2 liter diesel engine and it only has twin exhaust pipe on right hand side. Both tail lamps are vertical, but the Palisade, there is a little gimmick here. If you take a look inside of this silver panel, actually the light comes through these little slits. So at night time it gives you a more fancy look, while the Explorer is just simple and functional. Ford is 25 millimeters higher than Palisade, but you cannot tell the difference from outside. But actually, when you open up the trunk boot, you can find some more difference between those two. No. Let's see if we can put these 3 luggages in a Palisade trunk boot with 3rd row sits up. That was close. Fingers crossed. No! If I give a little push. Push. It's done. And if you need more space, there is an electric button in the trunk. Yeah, so lovely. Now you have much more space with just a fingertip touch of a button. Explorer. There is also a button on your right side, so you can easily fold down the third row seats. So the MSRP of this Ford Explorer in Korean market, it's 60 million Korean won. So it's almost 10 million Korean won more expensive than the Hyundai Palisade diesel version. But the materials that used in this interior, it's a little bit disappointing because all the plastics, they are very hard piece and it's not solid, so you can just push it and grab it and make it twisted, and it makes noise too. So overall it looks great, but when you touch it you may think a little bit different. American market, they have a larger vertical version of the center display, but I don't know why in Korean import versions they all come with this small size of the center display. But I do like that they still have this analog type of the real gauges for the RPM and the speedometer, but I don't think they are all blending well as a one cluster. The rotary shifter, they give you a very good click. When you want to drive as a manual transmission, then you just simply click this M button inside. Hyundai Kia Motors, they have parking position in the center. Ford system has the parking, reverse, neutral drive, and manual mode in the center. I like this one better. There's one thing that I really love about this car. It's the audio system. It has the logo of the Bang & Olufsen, and actually those speakers plays like an angel. It's not open to discussion. The vocal, it's really clear. The beats, the bass, it's quite deep and strong enough. So welcome to Palisade interior. Almost every part that you can touch in this cockpit is quite soft, solid, and there is no noticeable gap between different materials. 2020 new version comes with this full digital LCD display. This one shares the graphic with the Sonata and Ranger, I think. In the center there's a touch screen, I guess 12.5 inch. It has a very intuitive GUI. Depth design is quite simple as well. Since there is no shifting lever or rotary, all functions are coming through this buttons layout. The seating position is quite similar to Ford Explorer, but this one has a slightly lower hip point. But I don't have any complaint about the Ford Explorer's hip point, because the higher you sit on, then you know it's always better to have a clear full view of the surroundings. So the Explorer is like more off-road style, but this Palisade is more like a passenger car, but still almost similar point. So this Palisade audio system is mated to Krell sound system. He doesn't even know it's wrong. Sound is quite satisfying. Please leave your comments how you think about those two different speaker brands. Yeah, they are quite on par, but my preference is slightly toward this Pro system. So let's move on to the back seat. 2 seats in the front, 3 seats in the second row, and then another 2 seats at the back. So it's 7-seater configurations. On the left side and on the right hand side, those 2 seats can be adjustable via this slide function and the reclining function, but I wish they go further backward a little bit more. And I have no idea why the center seat does not have the sliding rail. It's just fixed on the floor, so the only thing that you can adjust is the back seat reclining angle. No, you cannot adjust the seat back. This 7-seater is configured by 2 seats on the first row and the 2 seats on the second row, which means you have a space in the center and large width of your second row seat. The degree of the reclining is far more variable than the Ford Explorer. In Palisade there are 2 big independent glass, so one for the first row and the bigger one for the second and third row. This glass is fixed on the roof, so you cannot open it, and it gives you much brighter interior atmosphere. Ford Explorer, on the other hand, it has a big panoramic sunroof that makes the air vent on the roof locating at the back of the panoramic sunroof. So the air vent is located just between the second row and third row. And I think the Ford's approach is more effective in terms of the climate control. And look at this. The second row not only offers heated seat but also the cooling seat. So in the option wise, Palisade takes the lead again. Now I'm in the driver's seat of the Ford Explorer. This Tesla has 2.3 liter petrol turbocharged engine. It's a shame that we have the diesel counterpart from the Palisade, because the diesel engine Palisade is the mainstream in Korean market, but I know that probably diesel engine will not be available in American market. This Ford has 10-speed automatic transmission. So 10-speed automatic, do we really need this 10-speed? I am not quite sure. The final gear, the 10th gear ratio, is quite similar to other brands' 8th gear, the final gear. So in terms of the gear ratio spread, this 10-speed automatic does not have so much benefit. Yeah, under the full acceleration, the full load, but still you don't feel that this car is light enough for sporty driving. In Korean market, this is actually a large size SUV. It's one of the biggest SUV in Korean market. Yeah, no one expects a Porsche-like, Cayenne-like, a sporty response, strong acceleration in this car, but the right quality. This car, it's exactly the same feeling that I experienced on the frame-bodied SUV in the last 10 years. Yeah, the 5th generation of the Ford Explorer, it also has average or a little bit under the average level of the ride comfort. The body was not rigid enough, so it could not handle a big bumps on the surface. It kind of made a big shake through the chassis. The new 6th generation, it's still feels like I'm driving a truck, and the steering response is quite slow too. The gear ratio of the steering is quite similar to that of the Palisade, but the initial movement of the steering, there is a decent lead time in order to make the final movement of the chassis. And I'm not talking about the grip change. Still, even if the car has rolling angles, still you can definitely feel the constant grip of the tire under the 100 kilometers per hour range. Definitely it's out of the comfort zone, I think, because the modern mid-size SUVs, they should definitely do better than this. But what I really like about this car is adaptive cruise control and lane centering function. This car is really sensitive about lane centering, and in case of other car from the next lane just cuts in just in front of you, in that case this car can slowly or gently reduce the speed in order to make a proper space. So on our trip on last 13 miles, the average consumption is almost 26 miles per gallon. Yeah, we do not have any traffic lights. It's almost a motorway. Given that, I think the fuel consumption level is just about average range. Now we are approaching off-road course because I really wanted to know its capability of four-wheel drive system, since this new generation of the Explorer now has longitudinal engine location, and there should be something about it why Ford has changed its fundamental layout. So the slippery mode, the stability control is still on, but if you switch to trail mode, basically it's off-road mode, stability control is automatically off because it will allow some certain level of the wheel spins to push the car forward. The right front wheel loses grip, and it's struggling to distribute the torque to other wheels. Come on, Ford. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a long day for you. Oh, another challenge. I should try another mode, deep sand mode. Let's see. Yeah, it allows more power to the wheel because deep sand, deep snow, it makes spinning, and that spinning makes additional thrust. But it's very interesting to see that once the wheel is losing the grip, the independent brake goes into that slipping wheel and makes it to stop the spinning. But this Explorer, it just keeps spinning and distributes the torque to other wheel. But the torque distribution to other wheels on the ground is not effective enough. Come on, Ford. I know you can do better than this. No. Okay, that's it. That's it for this off-road capability. Now, Palisade time. This diesel engine produces about 202 horsepower and 45 kilograms of the torque. And the engine is mated to 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission. What I really like about this engine is that it still provides quite torquey feeling below the 1500 RPM. And in the American market, if you see the V6 3.8 liter engine, actually the overall weight of the car is much lighter than this diesel version. This diesel version with the all-wheel drive system, it weighs over 2 tons, but the V6 petrol version, then the overall net weight is around 1900 kilograms. This 8-speed transmission is especially designed for the front-wheel drive cars in the Hyundai Kia groups. Since it's laid transverse alongside the engines, the engine is located there and the transmission is here, so those biased weight distributions on left and right wheels, and also the weight distribution is biased quite far for the front axle. So usually when we are talking about the drive comfort, FF layout like this Palisade is always has the disadvantages against the FR platforms, the rear-wheel drive based cars like Ford Explorer. While you're cruising on 100 kilometers per hour, the rev counter shows just 1500 RPM. And this is basically the same RPM range that you can find on 10-speed automatic Ford Explorer. So what's the point of the 10 speeds then? Yeah, the overall drive comfort it's more than good enough. Around 90 kilometers, between 90 kilometers and 100 kilometers per hour, really soft. For the Explorer, you can feel a more softer initial bump feeling, while Palisade gives relatively sharper initial bump pressure. But after that, when the rear wheel hits the same bumps on the road, the overall chassis movement, Palisade shows a little bit better control than the Ford Explorer can do. The initial steering response it's dumb. Relatively, Explorer showed a little bit faster movement upon your initial steering input. Yeah, the steering ratio is lower, which means the Ford Explorer has more direct feel from the steering wheel than the Palisade. And this car is equipped with a head-up display, and when a car is approaching from your blind spot, it also shows the warning light on your outside rear view mirrors, but it's also lit on the head-up display, so the warning signal is easily readable to driver in most of the times. This is Korean car developed by the Korean engineers, and this highway driving assistant smart cruise control system is really fantastic on most of the Korean highway, and it can automatically slow down its speed just in front of the speed cams so that you don't get any penalty from the police department, and it can slow down in front of the toll booth, which are currently only available in Korean road condition. It feels like the car is driven by a veteran driver. So let's hit the off-road with this Palisade. This Palisade also has the same 3 different off-road mode. One for snow, one for mud, and one for sand. I will use sand mode first. So this 2.2 diesel turbo engine gives you quite high level of the torque, around 1500 RPM, the low end revolution area. And it goes up much easily than Ford Explorer. Yeah, there's no such four-wheel drive locking button which locks front axle and the rear axle together. This was the hard part for the Explorer, but this car, what's happening now? Oh, yeah, you can hear that the brake kicks in to hold the sleeping wheel, and just 1 or 2 seconds later the other wheels gets the additional grip and pushes the car forward. Yeah, in theory the RWD based platform should have more strength on this extreme off-road condition, which Ford Explorer has, but this transaxle front wheel based Palisade eventually shows better off-road crawling performance on the same road condition. It's a very surprising result. Yeah, this is something that I really didn't expect from Palisade, because I believe that the Explorer will be much stronger on this off-road and extreme road condition. So, this was the battle in the mid-size SUV today. What do you think about these 2 models? Please leave your comments. Which car is more attractive for you guys? I was quite surprised that this new contender is performing quite well against this traditional strong benchmark. So stay tuned to the Motorgraph World channel. We will come up with more interesting videos later. Thank you for watching.